Hey everybody, welcome back. It is the Razzball Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I am Beanon, joined by the fantasy master Lothario himself, Gray Albright. How you doing over there, Gray?
Good, man. What's going on? I was just placing a few bets with this guy called Favid Detcher, I think his name was. Favid Detcher. He he said that he was a former athlete in the Anaheim Angels system. I don't know. David Fletcher. Hold on a second. So David Fletcher, for people who haven't heard, even though I think a lot of people have, but anyway, I'll update people. So David Fletcher was caught gambling with the same illegal bookmaker. Illegal because it's not legal in sports gambling is not legal in California. Anyway, he was gambling with the same illegal bookmaker as as Epe, Shohei Ohtani's translator. I think we might have to start putting stuff in quotes, as in this is what we're being told, but not necessarily maybe the truth. I don't know. So David Fletcher was caught gambling with the same bookmaker as Epe was gambling with. And supposedly David Fletcher is also Shohei Ohtani's best friend, is what they're saying. So Shohei Ohtani now has two best friends, and both of them were gambling with the same bookmaker. And Shohei was like, "Yeah, I don't know what's going on."
Hey.
At a certain point, it's like everyone. It's like, hey, Shohei, who's so your best friend Epe got caught gambling with your money, and now your other best friend David Fletcher got caught gambling with your money. You really should choose friends better. And Shohei's like, yeah, that's why I'm now hanging out with Pete Rose, my new best friend. I mean, I don't know, man. It's starting to. It looks a little fishy. I'm not Mr. Conspiracy Theory guy. Of course, chemtrails are real. We know that. we just got a boost in YouTube. YouTube is now boosting this video because I'm talking about chemtrails. But I'm not really a big conspiracy guy, but I mean, if two of your best friends, quote unquote, are caught gambling with the same illegal bookmaker, I don't know, man. Is it really possible that Ohtani had no idea what was going on? I don't know. I don't know, man. Honestly, this doesn't really change. Going back to will Ohtani ever be investigated or suspended or any of that? No way. There's absolutely no way that's happening. Don't get me wrong. MLB is going to look as far away from anything to do with any impropriety by Shohei Ohtani. MLB is gonna look totally the opposite direction. But I mean, if you're hanging out with all all Shadesville people, I don't know, man. Maybe there might be a little bit of fire where there's so much smoke. What's your take on this whole thing, B-Don?
I mean, it's certainly possible that there's something going on. On the other hand, like, I can definitely see Shohei, interpreter, David hanging out. Interpreter's like, oh yeah, I gamble. Or David is like, oh yeah, I gamble. I go through this guy, said person. And then they just start using the same person. I mean, I can see that. I've never obviously had any illegal bookies because I would never do that trade. But I can imagine in such a setup that, all friends may use one guy because like somebody found said guy, they get paid from him, there's no issues. Like, I can see how this works out to where it's not involving Ohtani, but there's also the I am more of a conspiracy theorist, and there is the where there's smoke, there's usually fire type of look here. But I mean, I don't think MLB wants anything to happen to Ohtani, so I don't really see it happen to him. David Fletcher, he can take the fall here.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's like the fall guy, Ryan Gosling, Epe, and David Fletcher coming to a theater near you. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. It's like I hang out with people who use illegal bookmakers, and I don't personally do it myself. So yeah, I mean, it's possible. It's totally possible. I'm just saying that, like, if in your scenario, like if David Fletcher is being like, he's talking to Epe, is like, hey, where's my best friend, Shohei Ohtani? And Epe's like, he's my best friend too. Cool, man. Hey, where is he? Oh, I don't know. I think he's taking a shower. You want to do some gambling? Like, okay. What are we using for money? well, Dave, I actually got a password or two here on my browser that just goes right into this bank account that has $700 million. You want to David Fletcher and Epe all in Shohei Ohtani's bank account while Shohei Ohtani's walking out. He's like taking a shower. Oh man, it's so ridiculous. I mean, it's really poor Shohei.
And I guess
honestly,
just to give a little
in the big picture, like in the big picture of things, I don't care if guys gamble on other sports, man. It's like David Fletcher supposedly was gambling on sports other than baseball, and really, like, who cares at this point? It's legal. It's honestly, they can gamble. It's just they can't use illegal bookmakers. That's the impropriety here. It's like everything they did, like everything David Fletcher did in theory is legal. Like baseball players can gamble on football, for instance. They just can't use an illegal bookmaker, which is like, I mean, an illegal bookmaker is just the most ridiculous thing because sports gambling is illegal in California anyway. So it's like, what Epe did, actually robbing Shohei, that's another story. It hasn't been revealed that David Fletcher was also borrowing Ohtani's money for gambling too. So what Fletcher was doing sounds really kind of basic and like, yeah, so he was gambling on football. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it just comes down to, like, it's illegal if it's through an illegal bookmaker. So, MLB players generally aren't allowed to do illegal things. I mean, I can understand that. And to your point, like, why wouldn't you just do it legally? Why wouldn't you download one of the 85 gajillion sports betting apps and just do it through there? You're in a legal state to do it. Most of the states that you're going through, you could probably do it, or you can just lay them ahead of time if you really want to. But yeah, we'll see what happens here. As you mentioned, it wasn't supposedly on baseball that he was betting, so we'll see what happens with how Major League Baseball handles this. But no, betting has not been something they've generally allowed to be okay. And got to imagine David Fletcher is probably going to be a non-baseball person sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, talk about the easiest person to drop the hammer on. God, they can't find an easier fall guy. It's like they really couldn't set themselves up. MLB, that is, MLB couldn't set themselves up with a better fall guy than David Fletcher. It's like, oh, yeah, you're suspended for life. Oh man, shucks. I was in AAA for the Braves. Oh, jeez. Yeah, it's a tough luck there for everyone involved, except
Yeah,
except
I'm sure
David
the
Fletcher.
Braves offense will definitely
Yeah,
miss David Fletcher's
yeah.
250 no
Okay,
power
but that's
no
like
speed.
that's basically like the Astros cheating to win a World Series and then blaming the manager only. It's like, yeah, oh shucks. Oh, anyway.
All right, great. Let's move on to some actual, baseball, fantasy baseball talk here. Let's start with Bryson Stott. He was number 1 on the 7-day player rater. Feel like that earns him some time on the podcast. He is currently number 22 on the year-to-date player rater and the third second baseman behind only Mookie and Marcus Semien. We've seen the K rate go down. The walk rate has more than doubled, which is great here. What are you seeing here with Bryson Stott? Is it real? Are you buying this, or is this kind of an early season good stretch?
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts. With Bryson Stott, my big takeaway here is like he had 15 homers and 31 steals and a 280 average last year. So he was already really good. I mean, that was kind of like my sort of my preseason my draft advice was go for Bryson Stott because he was already good. So draft him this year aggressively. I was kind of surprised. I think his ADP, I'm going to say roughly like around 100, I think. And that felt low to me because, like last year, I think he was in the top 75 overall on the player rater. I don't know off the top of my head. I think it was somewhere in there. But 15 homer, 30 steal guy, 280 average, that was all neutral luck too on the 280 average. So like if Bryson Stott is that neutrally, that's like an easy top 75 overall guy on the player rater, like without the counting stats, which unfortunately, so this is my other big issue with Bryson Stott. On the negative side is that for whatever reason, Thompson has been platooning him a lot this year, like more so than I think last year. Like last year, he saw 151 games, 585 at bats. I don't think he was really platooned last year, but this year, he's been he gets pulled or even just sat like a bunch of times for like Edmundo Sousa. Like what? That is so dumb. It's like Bryson Stott was already good. I don't understand really why he's getting platooned. It's an odd thing too because it's not like there was a manager change, and he hit 282 last year versus lefties. And so far this year, he's hitting 289 versus lefties. He's actually hitting better versus lefties than he is righties. So I don't know why he's getting platooned at all. So, but the platoon will hurt his counting stats a bit, the runs and RBIs. So, I think he's probably, he's still a 15-30 guy. I think that's it. And he's a 280 hitter. So that goes without saying. The runs and RBIs are going to be the issue. And so far, I think he's been hitting around, on the bottom of the lineup, say like between 7th and 9th, I think for the most part, maybe occasionally sneaking in above there. But for the most part, the bottom of the lineup, which is going to hurt the runs and RBIs as well. So if he's looking at, say, if Bryson Stott has, say 75 runs, 55 RBIs, and the 15, 30, 280, again, it's going to hurt his overall fantasy value. So it's going to knock him down a little bit, probably back to where he was last year. Not necessarily that dramatically better than last year. Again, probably in like the maybe 75 to 60 overall on the player rater. That's good. It's totally fine. I like Bryson Stott. I would trade for him. I think he's one of the better hitters in baseball. He's like, he's basically like Nico Horner with a little bit worse runs and RBIs. Nico Horner's right now a little bit banged up. I think he's about to end up on the IL. But, even if they're both healthy, they're basically the same thing, except Nico Horner is more leadoff and Bryson Stott, for whatever reason, Bryson Stott should be leadoff, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I'm going to push back here just a little bit. In recent days, he's sitting either 2 or 5, so he's not been quite as buried in the lineup recently as he was to start the season. And to be fair, he started the season pretty crappy. I mean, he's hitting 225 through April, and then has really turned on at least the average side of things through May. He was always hitting home runs and stealing bases throughout that time. So it's still providing you fantasy value. In regards to platooning, I don't know if I'd call it a platoon. He's had I'd say once every 10 to 14 days, he gets a day off or he doesn't start, but he'll come in and pinch hit and still get an at bat or two. So, I mean, I get it. He's not playing every single day, but I don't necessarily think I would call what he's doing a platoon either. He's not coming out of the game for every single lefty they're facing. He's coming out on occasion versus the lefty because it's more of a planned day off, it seems like, at least in what I'm looking at and what I see. So I love Bryson Stott. 1530 with a good average seems pretty standard, and he's actually on pace to do a little bit better than that. This is one of those guys that I was actually really high on draft day, so this is maybe just me being doing a little confirmation bias here on Bryson Stott, but I like what I see. I don't really see any reason why he went, after 100, which was his ADP in the draft season. It never really made sense to me, given kind of what he'd accomplished, and none of it really seemed fluky last year. But I guess I'm pretty much all in on Bryson Stott. For you, would you have him over Andrés Giménez, who I believe was one spot below him in preseason?
For
you.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of similar. There's a bunch of 15, 30-ish, 270 plus average middle infielders. I mean, they're super similar. I would go Stott probably now over Giménez, but yeah, I mean, not real. I mean, kind of a coin flip, really. They're close. All right. What would you go? Would you go Stott or Giménez?
I'd go Stott. I just think the average is going to be higher, or at least he has that capability. We haven't seen Giménez really be a consistent high average guy. I mean, we haven't seen it from Stott be consistent, but so far in his time up, he's been a high average guy.
I think that's right. I think Giménez is a little bit more locked in as a two hitter,
top of the order hitter. Yeah, I can see that.
Okay.
How about Bryce Terang, who's been off to a great start this season?
No, I would go Stott over Terang.
I would too, and it's more just because I trust Stott than Terang, not necessarily, upside or anything. Just that's where I'm going. How about Jordan Westburg, who's also been great to start the year?
Yeah, I like Westburg a lot. I think Westburg's got more power, less speed, and probably a little bit less average. Not too bad though. I mean, Westburg is, he's got like a under 20% strikeout rate. Westburg has, probably. I would say Westburg's probably we're looking at Westburg as 25, 15, 260 versus the 15, 30, 280. Westburg's he's been hitting at the top of the lineup recently. I saw him hitting like leadoff and then second the other day. That's tough, man. I think that's kind of on needs at this point, but I'd probably go Westburg.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that one's really close.
Yeah.
I would say I think I'm going with Stott just because of, I think the average from Stott is more legitimate. Home runs, stolen bases, I think like if you just, if we're just adding home runs, stolen bases up, and we're going to get to a similar number between the two.
Yeah.
And I think we've already seen Stott start to climb the batting order, whereas I don't know how far Jordan Westburg can climb in Baltimore. I mean, he's been performing and they still kind of are refusing to necessarily move him up consistently. He's had a couple of games where he's hitting 1-2, but then they shove him back down to 7. So he's kind of like, he's very up and down in the batting order. So I think he's a little bit more splits oriented in regards to the batting order than what it seems like Stott might be. But that one's really close. Let's aim a little higher here. How about Jose Altuve, Gray?
No, I would still go Altuve over Stott, but yeah, Altuve over Stott, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I think I'd probably go the other way because I hate Jose Altuve and I keep waiting for the fall off, but I can certainly see going with Altuve, who's just been as consistent as you could possibly ask for. And then one last one.
Look at, for people who are listening and don't have the numbers in front of them, Altuve has 8 homers, 7 steals, and is hitting 307.
Yeah, he has a great.
And it's basically his norm. I mean, he's the Astros are not performing well, but Altuve is performing totally fine.
Yeah, the counting numbers are a little down on Altuve versus what he's done in his career, and that's a little bit of concern, just more with the team, I think. And then one last one, great Ozzie Albies, who has obviously missed some games, and I'm not gonna say struggled, but it's just not been, as exciting as Ozzie Albies usually is.
I'm seeing the Matt Olson actually did something today versus the Padres. We're recording this on Monday, and Olson finally hit a home run. Albies has struggled. Austin Riley has struggled. I mean, the Braves, Acuna hasn't done nearly anything remotely like we were expecting. I mean, the Braves in general, their whole hitting lineup, their lineup has really struggled, right? With that said, I would take Albies over Stott.
Okay. Yeah, the Braves being 19th in runs scored is not really what anybody expected from that roster, especially if you told us that like Marcell Ozuna is going to be hitting, as good as anybody in the league on top of, Acuna and Riley and Albies. It's just got to get Olsen.
Can we bask in the fact that in my labor league, I got Ozuna for $1 in a 12-team auction? Can we talk about this again?
That's pretty absurd, honestly, that anybody like that would go for $1.
The crazy thing is, in fairness to my league mates in that league, I nominated him for $1. I was expecting someone to go to 2, and they would have got him. I wouldn't have went to 3. I would have been out at 2. I would have been like, yeah. So in fairness, I just happened to nominate him for $1, and it was crickets. And I was like, well, I guess I got Marcell Ozuna.
Yeah, I guess to compare that to the NL only that I'm in, he went for $18 in that one. So yeah, great. That's pretty absurd.
That's NL though. I'm talking. Mine was 12-team mixed league.
Oh, okay. Still, that's still pretty ridiculous. Congratulations, Gray. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on. Adley Rutschman has been on an absolute tear the last few games. He has 4 home runs in 3 games. And the numbers just improve year to year from what we've seen from him. 42 games this year. He has 9 home runs, a stolen base, 26-28. He's hitting 309, 344, and 500. Last week, we announced that William Contreras was the number 1 catcher. And we had just been ignoring him for, all season. Is Adley the clear-cut catcher number 2 here?
Well, on the player rater right now, Salvador Perez is the number 2 catcher. Adelai's 3 in front of Jeffers. And then Will Smith Cal Raleigh, and then it starts to drop off. Adley Rutschman, I don't know. He feels so like his name for some reason, like it feels like it's like the Carlos Correa syndrome, where like his name is so much more hyped than his actual production. I mean, he's fine. I don't know. He's fine, right? Like Carlos Correa was never this good. I'll say that. Maybe Adley Rutschman's name does mean a higher draft pick or more name value than his actual stats, but he is actually good versus Carlos Correa, who I didn't like, but I felt like he was also not that good either. Adley Rutschman is good, so I'll give him that. I mean, his walks are down. I don't know. I mean, if I was really going to dig in, because he's a catcher, I sort of feel like, who cares, really? I mean, you have him. I wouldn't trade for him. I wouldn't, I would trade him away, if anything. Like, if I could get, like, I don't know, Cal Raleigh and an actual, like, another piece that was good, I'd probably trade away Adley Rutschman if I had him, but I would never draft him. Anyway, if you have him, I mean, you just ride it. I don't know why you drafted him, but if you have him, you ride it out, and he's going to be fine. He'll be like, I guess roughly 25. I would expect 25 homers, 0 speed, 300 average, good counting stats for a catcher, especially. I think, it wouldn't be a reach to say he's probably going to get to 90 runs and maybe 100 plus RBIs, which is, for a catcher, that's great. He plays just about every day. I still, the fact that Sal Perez and Jeffers is behind him on the player rater, but not that far behind him, and the fact that they're even close shows you that, you don't have to do a ton as a catcher to be a top 5 catcher. A top 10 catcher, you don't have to do anything really. I mean, you can have like a good month or two. Like right now, Connor Wong is the 10th best catcher, and I don't even think he's played in May. I mean, he was good in April. I don't have his numbers in front of me, but I don't think he's done much of anything in May, which is fine for a catcher. I mean, that's just how it goes. Adley Rutschman, I think, is, a lock for a top 3 catcher a year, but that means, it means whatever to me. I don't know. I see a catcher like a top 10, a top 5 catcher, say, like, say Ryan Jeffers, if he stays there and he hits like, 20 homers, 270, and, decent enough like runs and RBIs, like, I don't know, 65 and 75 for runs and RBIs. That's fine for a catcher. You don't really need much more in order to, be competitive. And in a lot of leagues, like in leagues where I'm doing really well, to use actual examples, like in a league, in that Marcell Ozuna league, for instance, it's a 12-team mixed league, and I have Elias Diaz and Tyler Stevenson. It's a 2-catcher league. Elias Diaz and Tyler Stevenson, and I'm in, I think I'm in first place right now. If not, I'm like maybe a half point out of first. I mean, I'm doing fine. And in other leagues, I basically punt catcher in every league, and it hasn't really affected like the bottom line for my teams. Like maybe if I had Adley Rutschman instead of Tyler Stevenson, I would be doing even better. But that money for an auction or for a draft pick, it's got to come from somewhere. Like I would have to give up something else. So, and the thing I would be giving up is always more valuable to me than the top catcher. Like Adley Rutschman, where he was going in drafts, seems like about where he's going to end up at the end of the year. He doesn't seem like he was necessarily overrated, but it also, I mean, there was other guys going in his range that I just think are way more valuable. I don't know. I'm not a fan. It's a long way of me saying I'm just not really a fan of Adley Rutschman for fantasy. I mean, he's totally fine, but it's like he is what he is.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably a little bit more high on Adley, but in general, we both have the same thoughts on catcher. So, I mean, 9 home runs is a very solid production. 309, he's hitting 309. He's got counting numbers. Like, he's doing everything you wanted him to do if you selected him as a top 50 player. You and I just wouldn't select him as a top 50 player, and we would trade him for a top 50 player. What you could do probably, because he's, on the player radar right now, he is a top 50 player. So, like, he's doing what you expect. I would just rather have some other guys, and I'm fine taking the hit at catcher. Ryan Jeffers, who you mentioned, has saved me in a number of leagues because he was going for free basically, and he's top 5 catcher right now. So there's any number of guys you can grab. David Fry's been on a tear. Wilson Contreras was probably dropped earlier in the season and now is hitting again. You can always stream catcher. It's just not a position that either of us really aim to spend draft capital or auction money on.
Yeah, no, completely. I was just looking up while you were talking. I was looking up the ADP for Adley Rutschman, and he was going right in front of Tariq Skubal and right after Edwin Diaz. So you were okay if you took Adley instead of Edwin Diaz. Okay, you did okay.
I mean, another thing we don't do is also take quote unquote elite closers at the top. So wouldn't been either of us, but yeah.
No, there's a ton of landmines, and like if you look at drafts now, it's so funny to look at them. Like even after 6 weeks in, you look at drafts and you're like, man, if I took Julio Rodriguez instead of Mookie Betts. It's like, I mean, at the time though, that made sense, and it's like, and then you look at, not all my teams are doing well. I'm sure I talk about my terrible teams enough for people too, but like I took Matt Olson and Corbin Carroll in one league, and that team is awful. I mean, it's just like Matt Olson, like I mentioned, he homered earlier today, but I mean, even like he's hitting like 230, and it's just like everything you wanted from Matt Olson, Marcell Ozuna's doing, and Corbin Carroll has been even worse. I mean, Corbin Carroll looks like I know we talked about him a couple weeks ago on the podcast, but it's not like I was saying, I think on that podcast where we were talking about him like a week or two ago, I think I mentioned how it looks like he's going to be like a top 25 pick next year versus like a top 2 or 3 pick. And now, I mean, a couple weeks later, Corbin Carroll might fall to like in the 50s next year. I mean, he looks so bad. He's not even stealing. I don't know if his sprint speed is down. I don't know what's going on with him. But like, I think he was caught 4 out of 12 times so far or something, like something ridiculous. Like, how is he getting caught so much? He's so fast. I don't know. Anyway, that's off the, okay, we can continue.
Yeah. I mean, Corbin Carroll, I mean, he's still really fast. I don't know what's going on with him. I suspect he's just not healthy, and we'll hear something that he wasn't healthy all season. And then that may adjust his draft price back to, top 20, top 25. But we'll wait and see on, predicting where he falls. But it sounds like doesn't sound like you're necessarily trading for Corbin Carroll anytime soon.
No.
All right, so let's move on. Yu Darvish has gone 24 consecutive innings without giving up a run. He has 47 and 2/3 innings this year. He's a 2.08 ERA, 0.90 WHIP. He has 9 starts with a 4-1 record, 25% K rate, 7% walk rate. I mean, I don't 25% K rate. I'm not going to ask, say old Yu Darvish is back, but is Darvish back in a a light that works for us?
Yeah, I mean, he looks like he's figured out. His command. His command was a little wonky last year, but outside of last year, he hasn't really been terrible. Right? I mean, except for like he had a weird patch in like 2018. It looks like, but for the most part, I mean, outside of last year, it looks like he was basically, a solid starter every year, more or less. I mean, 2021, he had a 4.22 ERA, but it came with a lot of good strikeouts, and it looks like he was a little bit unlucky there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is we were maybe last year we assumed it was the end of Yu Darvish, and it looks like maybe we were a little too quick to say that. I mean, other than last year, he looks like he's had a solid, like every year has been solid except for the year I mentioned. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't look like I guess what I'm saying is like his command looks fine. His fastball velocity is a little bit down, but he throws he throws so many different pitches that it's so it's so hard to know what's as a hitter, I guess. It's just so hard to know what's coming because there's so much, he shows you so much variety. Yeah, I mean, he looks good. I don't think he's a 2.08 ERA pitcher as he is right now. He's probably, probably closer to like a 3.6, 3.6, 3.7 ERA guy, which is fine. That's not bad. He's going to have his ups and downs. I think he's I actually picked him up off of waivers in our RCL league, which is 12-team mixed league, which I was surprised. I don't pay 100%. I'll be honest, I don't pay 100% attention to like everyone who gets dropped and picked up because there's so much churn in that league. Yeah, it's just like it's hard to really know everyone who's being dropped. But I occasionally look on waivers to see who's a starter for like an upcoming start. And I saw Yu Darvish there, and I was like, well, what? That seems crazy. He should be on a team, no? So I picked him up there, and then I actually benched him on Sunday for his really good start against the Braves because I just didn't trust him fully. So I guess that's why he was on waivers originally. But yeah, I should have started him. That was like I mentioned earlier about the Braves struggling for hitting, and yeah, I should have just started Yu Darvish, even though it was in Atlanta, and there was. I was wrong. I got son of a benched, but live and learn. I think Yu Darvish looks fine though. Like for I'll say maybe he's a solid fantasy number 3 that looks like a number 2 right now, but I think he's probably closer to a 3, but that's fine. A fantasy number 3 is fine for any league, even the shallowest of leagues.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem with it. He's been great. So, you start him while you can. And I really think I don't know that I think he's a 208, 090 type of guy rest of season, but there's no reason he couldn't be mid threes and hovering around a 1 whip. He's never been a terrible, well, early in his career, he was bad with whip, but he's gotten that under control as he's gotten older. So yeah, I mean, he's very good. Where would you have him? Like top 30 starting pitcher? Could you move him up beyond that?
Yeah, no, I think that fantasy number 3. So number Chris Bassett basically, which is around starter number 30 overall, I would say. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess let's run some names real quick. And Chris Bassett, who's been terrible this year, by the way. So
He's
maybe not
I
Chris
think
Bassett.
I think he's been better recently, but yeah, he had a bad April. But yeah, anyway, go ahead.
Okay.
What names are you going to run by me? Go ahead.
Yeah, let's just run a few names here. Would you rather have Darvish or Jose Barrios, who's also been left for dead before?
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair toss up. I would probably go Barrios, but it's close.
Yeah, I think maybe just for the innings, Barrios throws more innings as a whole. So I think I can go that way, even if Darvish's K rate is slightly higher. How about Freddie Peralta, who's giving you the Ks, but there's been a little bit of ERA bounce this year.
Freddie Peralta over Darvish, yes.
Okay. How about Sonny Gray, who's been really good this year?
And I think he got rocked in his last start or start before. But
He
anyway,
got rocked in his last 2 starts, actually. He's given up 11
yeah,
earned in his last 2, but he'd been
right.
very good up until that point.
I have Sonny Gray in a few leagues. Yeah, he's been. I would go Sonny Gray over Darvish, but they're super close. That's the same range essentially.
Yeah, I would go Darvish in that one just because I generally don't trust Sonny Gray because of everything he's done to every single fantasy owner who's ever owned him. But I could see where they'd be very close in the rankings, even with my my biases. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on. Luis Matos was recalled. He got called up in March, played a single game, and then got sent back down. He apparently didn't like that too much because he's now hitting 385 with 2 home runs, 4 runs, 16 RBIs. 11 of those came in 2 games versus Colorado. Is Luis Matos worth a pickup? And in what leagues are you looking to add him?
Luis Matos. I mentioned this on the site on Razzball the other day, but Luis Matos, he had 17 RBIs in like 3 games, and Ryan O'Hearn, who's batting third for the Orioles, has had like 15 RBIs for the season, something ridiculous like that. It's like that's why like counting sets are so stupid. Luis Matos, as of the recording of this, has 17 RBIs and 4 runs. I mean, I guess, and he has 2 homers
in 8 games.
Yeah, in 8 games. It's just so ridiculous. What a ridiculous line he has. I mean, he had 17 RBIs in 8 games, and he had 14 RBIs last year in the majors in 76 games. So dumb. Okay, anyway, I would say, Matos is like, he was highly regarded at one point. Still maybe. I don't know. I mean, he's still young. He's only 22. He has power and speed. I like Matos a lot. He was one of the bigger gets, I think, off of waivers this week in like my leagues. I don't have in front of me, but it's something like, he was going for like $50 out of 1,000. I got him in one league for $1 out of 100. So I was the only one that bid. I don't know why, but it is what it is. I like Matos. I mean, whatchamacallit, Conforto. So Conforto is out. So when Conforto comes back, Jung Hoo Lee is out for the season. So I'm assuming Matos stays up for the year, and he can hit and he can run. He has speed and power. Even in AAA, his K rate was 9.1%. So he doesn't strike out a ton. I don't know. I would say grab him in every league and see what happens. But I was kind of surprised that it felt like he wasn't necessarily like that. It didn't feel like people really wanted him as much as I thought they would. Like he went, like I said, in some of my leagues, he went for like $50-ish out of 1,000, which is essentially like $5 out of 100. I thought he'd go for even more than that. I bid, unfortunately, I didn't really need him, so I didn't really bid that aggressively. I put in like, maybe $20 bids or something, and I didn't get him in any of those leagues. Like I said, I got him in the the 12-team mixed league for $1. I got him in that league. But I was happy to get him. I don't think he's going to have 20 plus RBIs per week and end up beating Hack Wilson for the season RBI. Like, I don't think he's going to hit. I don't think he's going to get 175 RBIs this year. But I don't know. I mean, he could hit potentially for the rest of the season from this point forward. He could be better than what we thought we were getting from Jung-Hoo Lee. So, whatever you thought you were getting there, he could be better than that, maybe with a little bit less average. But I don't know, like, say from this point forward, say 12 homers, 15 steals, 260 average. It's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It's getting he might be getting just a little bit lucky, but I mean, the BABIP isn't out of control or anything. It's been 8 games. As you mentioned, the counting numbers are a little, take them for whatever you want, but I mean, he's hitting well. Seems like he's playing right now, so why not? I guess he was joined in a call up by the Giants by Helio Ramos, who was also at one time a well thought of prospect. Are you putting Matos over Ramos in your pickup order?
Yeah, I think Matos, I would say is actually, I'll put this a different way. I'll say Ramos is probably 75% the player Matos is. So, if I'm saying 12, 15 for Matos, and Ramos is probably 10 10 10 12. I mean, he's a little bit less the player than Matos. And also, like I mentioned with Conforto comes back, something's got, like, there's got to be, there's room for both of them right now. There's not going to be room, I don't think, for both of them, like, in another week or two. I don't know Conforto's timetable, to be honest, but he's probably coming back. He only had a hamstring injury, so I would guess he's back in the next 2 weeks. At that point, Solar plays. Whatchamacallit? Matos, I think, stays, and Conforto plays, and Wade Jr.'s there, and Yastrzemski. I think that Ramos is the odd man out. Unfortunately, I don't think Ramos stays, but things could change in the next 2 weeks before Conforto comes. So we'll see. But my guess is Matos is the guy there.
Yeah, and Conforto hasn't had a timeline put on him yet. The initial thought was that he was only going to miss a few games, and he went to IL. So that's never really the progression that you want to see with an injury. The only thing I'll say to maybe push back against what you said was I think from just a raw power, raw speed perspective, I actually might say Ramos has more just raw power, raw speed. He's always struggled with the hit tool. So that part, he may lose his job because he just has a 35% K rate and his average bottoms out. But if we're just talking about tools, I actually might lean Ramos. Not that it matters, because in the end, you still have to hit the ball and actually put it in play. So I agree, I would go Matos, but they're closer to me, I think, than it sounds like they are with you.
Yeah, more or less.
All right, moving over to the Yankees, who, I guess we'll give a little bit of showtime to, even though you kind of hate doing that. But that's okay. Aaron Judge and Parmi Giancarlo have gone and become the Bash Brothers again, Gray, after struggling for much of the season. Stanton, since May 7th, has 5 home runs. He's hitting 325, 357, and 750. Judge, since May 5th, has had 7 home runs. He's hitting 432, 569, 1091. Let's start with Stanton here. First of all, over under 65 more games for Giancarlo.
Over.
Okay, that's good to start there. So optimistic start for the
I
games
don't
played.
know. I mean, 65 puts him at 106 for games. He had 101 last year, 110 the year before, 139 the year before. I mean, he's always. I mean, he's injured a lot, but he usually plays for. I would say he averages roughly in those 3 years 110, 115 games. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be great for all those games. I haven't looked at Giancarlo's stats in so long. It's like I usually just look at that photo of him from the ESPN nude magazine. ESPN was like, it's so obvious that they were like, oh, Sports Illustrated has a lot of success with the swimsuit issue. Maybe we just do it without the swimsuits. It's like the most ridiculous thing. Like, yeah, let's do a body issue and just have people naked. Yeah, okay. I mean, sure. Yeah, that's one way to attract people buying your magazine. Okay. Anyway, yeah. I mean, Giancarlo looks essentially like he's kind of better than he's been in, like, obviously even on the surface level numbers, but if you look at his like numbers below that, like his hard hit is way up from his previous years, and he hits the ball hard usually no matter what. But even him hitting the ball hard, he's hitting it even harder this year. He's pulling everything, which is totally fine. He's hitting like his standard insane homer per fly ball. He looks like the Stanton of old. The problem is, like, looking at, again, going back to the nude picture of him on the ESPN magazine body issue. If you look at his body, you see the fact that, similar to Aaron Judge, I mean, there's so much that can go wrong when a guy has that sort of torque in his swing like Giancarlo. So I mean, he's great. He's a I think he's a Hall of Famer, honestly. I guess we'll see what happens. He needs to probably get to 500 homers, but I think he can get there. Anyway, for this season, he'll be fine. At some point, he's going to hurt his oblique, though. I'm sorry to say it, but the torque in his swing is just too violent. At some point, he's going to injure something. He's going to go down. I mean, if you were to say, like, like you said, 65 games or whatever, more, and I said over. I'm not going far over that. that's pretty close to where I would expect him. Like, he's got 41 games played as of the recording of this. I would say Giancarlo's probably good for maybe another 70 games, 75 maybe. So, roughly 115 games played this year, which is, I mean, should be good for. He's got 11 homers. He should be good for 20, I would say 25 to 27 homers, 240 average. Yeah, it's fine. If anyone's giving you anything in a trade for him, I would trade him away.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is what you thought he was going to be, which was a cheap source of power in the draft season. He's done that, so you're happy with that. Yeah, I mean, if you could trade him for somebody who's going to give you something you need or similar production and not miss 40, 50 games, I would definitely do that. I think the Hall of Fame question it was an interesting one. I don't know, with as bad as his defense has been, if the offense is enough to carry, but also the Hall of Fame has never really cared about defense, despite everything it keeps saying. So he's
Yeah,
gonna have
I
like
don't
Eddie
know.
Matthews type of numbers by the end of it. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm a little bit more just put them in. Like, I'm
oh
I'm
yeah,
a
I'm
little bit
not.
I'm an easier vote than some people. I'm fine with like a guy like Giancarlo being in the Hall of Fame. I feel like there's like, there's the upper echelons, there's the inner circle, and then there's like, it goes out from there. And, Giancarlo may not be he may not be the greatest of all time, but he's totally within like the top 500 of all time. I mean, that's fine. I don't know. It's irrelevant what I think, really, when it comes to the Hall of Fame. But I think he's probably a Hall of Famer in my mind. If he gets the 500 homers and whatever, yeah, I think he's a Hall of Famer.
All right, fair enough. I'm definitely a harder critic of getting into the Hall of Fame. I feel like we've had way too many Hall of very good people allowed in, especially recently. But hey, that's a different topic for a different day. Let's run Stanton up against a few names here, since we talked about, maybe you would trade him right now. Would you rather him or Colton Cowser, who is slowed down a little bit since his hot start?
I would go Giancarlo.
Okay. How about Brandon Nimmo, who is just always consistent, but just so unspectacular?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I would probably go Giancarlo again, but that might be more a needs thing. Like if you needed batting average, I could see Nimmo.
Yeah, if you need batting average and runs, I could see where you would go with Nimmo. In general, I would say Stanton. If we were just ranking again, I would probably rank Stanton higher just for the upside. How about Stanton or fellow power breakout Brett Rooker?
I would go Rooker.
I think I would too. That feels a little crazy and maybe overreactive, but he put up 30 last year. That's pretty much what you're expecting from Giancarlo, and he doesn't have a history of playing only 100 games. So I think I'm going Rooker there as well. I guess if you're going Rooker, you're probably going Riley Green and Brian De La Cruz, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say Riley Green's way above Giancarlo for me.
Okay.
Right. Who was the other one?
Brian De La Cruz.
Oh, yeah, I'd go De La Cruz over Stanton. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, De La Cruz is, nobody really talking about him because he's in Miami, but he's doing really well too. 9 home runs, hitting 260. So pretty much everything you could ask for Brian De La Cruz. Very similar line to Adley Rutschman, who went like 300 picks before him. Let's move over to Aaron Judge, Gray. We talked about his line. Rest of season, there's a lot less players we would comp to Aaron Judge here. But is he a top 10 player, top 15? Where's Judge falling for you rest of season? Or is he pretty much where he was draft season?
Yeah, I don't think he's that different than draft season. He's basically on pace for essentially the same year as last year. And you drafted him, with, the assumption that he can stay on the field for more games. Last year, he only played 106 games. So, yeah, if he can play 145 games, then you're looking at 42 homers, 85 runs, 105 RBIs, 275 average. Yeah, he seems fine.
Right.
Yeah, it's essentially, I think he's pretty much what you expected, right? I don't know. Maybe you had, in your deepest hearts of hearts, the heart that's inside the heart that's inside the other heart. Maybe you thought you were going to get another 60+ homer season, but you're not getting that. Sorry.
No. Let's run through a few names here. Would you rather him or Marcell Ozuna, who we talked about?
I would go Judge.
Adolis Garcia.
Judge.
Bryce Harper.
That's tough. I think I would go Bryce Harper. Wait, weren't you against Bryce Harper in the preseason?
I was pretty strongly against Bryce Harper. That's okay. It's we're still only 43 games through the season, Gray. Let's hold off.
Yeah.
My concern was injury related. That stands still.
Okay. All right. We'll see. Yeah, I would go Harper over Judge. I think that's a slight difference than the preseason, but they're super close.
Yeah, I would still go Judge over Harper, but I understand. And then Juan Soto, I assume you're taking Juan Soto.
Juan Soto for sure.
All right. I mean, we've kind of touched on him real quick here and there. I just wanted to talk about him briefly because he is a top 10 player on the player radar right now. Marcell Ozuna, after last April, we thought he might just be done because he was hitting like 050 and no power. This season, he's hitting 323, 398, 606 with 12 home runs. He's got his career best hard hit rate, career best average exit velocity, second base walk rate, second best home run to fly ball rate. But the only thing he's not doing is playing the field. That's not going to change. But where does Ozuna fall when, like, if we were re-ranking right now, you're not going to get him for $1 anymore, Gray, in a mixed league. But would he be a top 75 player?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, I feel like Ozuna's he's getting deflated, like versus like Adley Rutschman, right? Where a guy who has, I think the name value has been more valuable than his actual fantasy value. I think Ozuna, probably rightfully so, because he's a terrible person in real life. I think he's getting dinged because he's just, he got arrested for domestic violence, and he seems like an awful person. So I think he's getting dinged for that, which it's fair. People they make up their minds. Who am I to say? Yeah, I think Ozuna probably, it's hard to say he's not, like, for fantasy, he's not at least a top 75 player. I mean, last year he had 40 homers and 100 RBIs, and he hit 274. This year doesn't seem like it's going to be much different than that. I mean, how different could, like, assuming he stays healthy, how different is he going to be versus last year where he went 40, 100, 275? Like, that's kind of where he's headed, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it. I will say, like, the one thing that maybe holds me back from, and maybe it's what's kind of hanging in other people's minds too, is it always seems like he has like a really strong half of the season, and then like the other half is kind of crappy. I just feel like that's coming at some point, but right now everything's clicking so well. He's hitting the ball so hard. Like, it's really hard to project that on him that he's just going to fall into, an abyss and be like a 150 hitter again, because he's smashing the ball right now. I guess as a spot check here, would you rather him or Adolis Garcia?
Oh, I would go with Dallas Garcia. He's going to chuck in 15 steals. Ozuna will not. And also, like, Ozuna right now has got a 369 BABIP, and he's probably closer to like a 285 BABIP guy. So his average is going to come down. His Ks haven't gotten like tremendously better. His walk rate is a little bit better, but Ozuna's neutrally probably a 270 hitter. And right now he's hitting 323. So, he's going to lose some batting average at some point. So there will be an extended slump somewhere along the line.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're in the same kind of area here with Ozuna. Let's talk about another fab pickup this week, and that was Joey Ortiz. Is the breakout finally here, Gray? A lot of guys liked him in the preseason. He struggled really, really bad out of the gate, but 13 games in May, he has 4 home runs. He's hitting 333, 391, 738 with a 405 ISO. K rate's down. Walk rate is also down. I mean, BABIP is down, but you don't need BABIP luck if you're just smashing home runs, unless we're talking about expected batting average, I guess.
Yeah, he's an interesting one because, like, there was really very little excitement for him in the preseason, even though, like, the Brewers traded away Burns for him, and he looked like a potential like 2020 guy with a good average. Like, he always had really, like, great plate discipline. like right now, like his walks are so good, like 13% walk rate and 16% strikeout rate for essentially a rookie. Yeah, I mean, he looks really good, like his peripheral wise. He hasn't really been stealing at all. I don't know if that's by design for him, or if it's a Brewers, like they don't want him to run. I don't know what's going on there, because he should be faster than only his one steal so far, especially since he gets on base a lot. I'd like to see him hitting higher in the order too. Like right now, I think he's hitting 6 roughly. It looks like on average. I'd like to see him hitting leadoff. I like Joey Ortiz. I don't know. Like he's still kind of an unknown commodity, because he hasn't been stealing, like I said. So it's hard to say where this is all going, but he looks good. I mean, he looks like as good as any of those random middle infield / corner guys that you're getting off of waivers. I like him. I bid on him in a couple leagues. I didn't get him anywhere. He probably should have been rostered already. In fairness, he hadn't done a ton before the past week, but he did get hot finally as far as power goes. But he was always hitting for a decent average. So, yeah, he looks good.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of looks, I don't know, Jeremy Pena-ish, maybe a little bit less upside.
Yeah, that's
not stealing, as you mentioned. Like if he would stole, like I think he can, pretty much same, but
right. Yeah, no, that's a fair comparison as of right now for the stats we're seeing. Jeremy Pena sounds about right. Jeremy Pena is actually, I was just looking at the player rater. Jeremy Pena looks like he's doing pretty well so far.
He is. Hitting 328 is not what we expected.
Yeah. I didn't really. Yeah, I wasn't 100% sold on Jeremy Pena coming into the year. I definitely had my Jeremy Pena issues. That as of right now, he's the 5th best shortstop, above Anthony Volpe, who I think a lot of people think is having a great year. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of shocking what Jeremy Pena is doing. I felt really good last year when I was like, no, it's not going to happen. And then when I double down on it this year, I feel not so good. So that's such is the life of a baseball predictor, Gray. Speaking of getting things right and getting things wrong, let's talk real quickly, since we talked about him last week. Alek Manoah.
Oh no!
Alek, he was picked up everywhere, Gray. Literally every league I have, he was picked up this week. I feel like we have to talk about him. He went 7 innings of no earned runs and no unearned runs this time. 7 Ks, only 1 walk again versus Tampa Bay. Do we have to take this seriously, Gray? Can we just ignore this for the rest of the season and pretend he's not here?
It was so he went for $81 in one of my leagues. That's $1,000 league, obviously. He went for $167 in another one of my leagues, and then he went for. I know, it's like people honestly really they really want the ulcer. They're like, I want to be stressed out. That's what I want. And then
people didn't know him last year. They don't know.
I know. And then another league, he only went for 26, which is that's for 26 out of 1,000, that's a good price. The problem with like guys like Alek Manoah and other guys who rely on their command versus their versus like velocity or something, and not that Alek Manoah throws like 89 miles per hour, but if he's up a little bit, his velocity is up, so it's up to, but it's only up to like 93 and a half, 94 miles per hour on his fastball, which is fine. It's up from last year. I have a feeling that has to do with mechanics. So the fact that his mechanics are fixed, that would lead me to believe that he's fixed, which is good. But the problem with guys like him, like if the mechanics go out of whack again, he can easily get bad again real fast. And, like to say he had 2 good starts is, it's a bit of a stretch because like his start, the previous start to his Sunday start was good, but the previous start, he did give up unearned runs. So, the fact that, they were unearned is good if you had him on your team, but I mean, he's still, I don't know. I mean, the whole like unearned run thing, it doesn't completely compute if like a guy is giving up like, getting hit hard after like an error. Like it doesn't, it's still like he was still hit, so I don't know. I'm not completely sold on Alek Manoah. I understand some of the bidding on him this week. Like I even bid on him. I think I bid like, $15 out of 1,000. I didn't bid a lot. I didn't really want him, but I would have taken him if I would have got, I would have taken him just in case. He really has fixed himself, but I don't think it's totally there yet. I would be, he's going to have another easy matchup this week against the Tigers in Detroit. If he gets hit around, it wouldn't really shock me. We'll see. If he gets hit by Javi Baez, then, call it quits, man. That's it.
No, you have to not send out any kind of tweet about Javi Baez during that game, though, Gray, because you really are, every time you say something about Baez is the only time he does anything at all. So you need to refrain from, putting yourself in that.
I understand. No, I hear what you're saying. For people who don't know, I sent out a tweet about like Javi Baez's like OPS is like the worst OPS in like the last like 80 years in baseball. It's so bad that like he's basically on par with like players from like the 1920s that
complete dead ball era
guys. like dead ball era guys, like just like awful. And he's on par with them. So yeah, Javi Baez is like he looks like historically awful.
But then you set that out and he had like 4 hits that day. So it's like the first day he's had 4 hits in like 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I do what I can for Javi.
All right, great. Alek Manoah, real quick. Would you rather have him or Tristan McKenzie?
I don't really like Tristan McKenzie.
I know you don't like him. I love him.
But I would go McKenzie over Alek Manoah. Yeah.
All right. Stroman, taking Stroman.
Yeah, Stroman for sure. Yeah, that's easy. Yeah. I'm like Alek Manoah for me is like Alek Manoah or like, who would
you liking like the Jordan Wicks area, like Griffin Canning, like desperate streamers? Is that what you're thinking here?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sold yet on Alek Manoah. Yeah, like Griffin Canning or Alek Manoah. That sounds about right. Like I think it was like I bid on Alek Manoah, like I said, and I bid on like a bunch of starters that had, that were on waivers. And like, it was like Alek Manoah, Kyle Gibson, like guys that you're like, you don't really want to win them, that's kind of where I am with Alek Manoah, but maybe he's fixed himself. I don't know. We'll see.
Start him versus the White Sox.
Yeah, I would start him against the Tigers to see how it goes, but I have no faith in that.
Yeah. Nope, completely fair.
Riley Green's going deep, at least.
Oh. Somebody needs to.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to. You know what's funny, Gray? I was looking at the team runs scored this year. White Sox are obviously last. Can you name me the next 2 teams?
For what? Say again?
Least runs scored this season.
Oh, least runs scored.
I'll give you a hint. It's not Colorado and it's not Oakland.
Right. Yeah, I didn't Oakland's actually pretty good. I would say the Marlins are awful. Is it the Marlins?
The Marlins are not it.
Oh, Mariners?
Mariners are 26th. They're not exactly killing it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're not. I don't know.
Think about your boy. Who's your boy?
Oh, the Jays. Yeah, they're
Jays are second to worst, and the
Yeah.
Cardinals, which warms my heart. The Cardinals are third worst.
Yeah, honestly, like I look at team stats more than people might think. I hadn't looked at that. I usually look at like average or OPS. There's like I mentioned this even on the site, I think on Monday's roundup, but like there's like 12 good hitting teams and there's like 18 terrible hitting teams. And like the Twins are like right in the middle. It's like the Twins are like the 13th worst or the best terrible team. but there's a lot of terrible hitting teams. I don't know if we're dealing with like a dead ball. I don't know if anyone's done the research like versus like previous seasons, but there's a lot of bad hitting right now. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, we have 15 teams that haven't scored 200 runs yet this season. That's awful. I mean, that's pretty crazy given how far we're into this season.
Yeah, no, seriously.
All right, great. One last thing we're going to talk about real quick here, because we talked about him last week as well, is Paul Skenes. He had his second outing also against the Cubs.
God. So
6 innings, 1 walk, 11 Ks, no earned, no hits. He threw 100 pitches. So he's really good, right?
Oh,
we can just schedule that in.
Yeah, he looked amazing. I watched a good part of that game. Yeah, I mean, what's it called? Like the Splinker or something? Whatever.
The Splinker. Yep. It's nasty.
Yeah. I mean, it's so nasty, man. Like, yeah, he looks unhittable. I don't know. Like, I'm sure there'll be some adjustment. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe there won't be. He looks like he's in his third year of the majors. Like, he looks like a top 5 pitcher. Like, absolutely. I don't think he's going to have the innings this year to get there. I think he's going to top out at like maybe 80 innings. But yeah, he looks so good.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like 100 pitches is like the pull point. It's like the Michael Jordan, he gets 13 minutes on the floor and then you yank him off type of thing. But I mean, if he can get through 6 innings, 5 2/3 with 100 pitches, I mean, he's going to have the case to make it worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. Let's move over to the bullpen. Maybe the biggest news out of the closer section is Edwin Diaz, who now was kind of viewed as like the clear-cut one especially once all the injuries happened. Not so much. He has 18 innings this year with a 5.5 ERA, a 1.22 WHIP, and the Mets have just called his role fluid. So, what are you doing with Edwin Diaz, and who are you grabbing behind him to grab those saves, Gray?
I would say, Reed Garrett probably should be rostered in all leagues. So I would say him for sure. But he should have been rostered for probably the last like 3 weeks to 5 weeks. Like Reed Garrett is not a surprise for saying he should be rostered. Like he's looked so good all year.
He's been great.
Yeah. I mean, he's basically like, he's been the equivalent to, I think, a number 3 starter. In one of my leagues, someone dropped him for Jalen Beeks, which is just so puzzling. I just don't know. It's really a puzzling thing. But anyway, I would say Reed Garrett should just be rostered. But the thing is with like the Mets bullpen, like Reed Garrett comes in for like an inning or two sometimes in like the 6th or 7th inning. I don't think just because Edwin Diaz is struggling, like Reed Garrett is just suddenly going to become the closer. So Altavino, for people who are looking for saves, I don't mind the Altavino flyer. Like, I think Altavino could potentially get a handful of saves here instead of Edwin and Reed. I think Reed is probably the best guy in the bullpen, but I don't know if he's necessarily just going to take over the ninth inning. And I also think they want to get Edwin right. So at some point, Edwin's going to try and get back into the ninth. It could be like a Kimbrel situation where Edwin Diaz, throws like the sixth or seventh inning of a couple games, gets right, and then gets back to the ninth inning and is the closer again for like the majority of the year. So, don't drop anyone too valuable for Altavino. And he's only if you're really struggling for saves. And Reed Garrett should just be rostered.
Yeah, I mean, he really should be. He's currently the 5th best reliever on the player rater for year-to-date, Gray, and that is with a grand total of 2 saves. So
Reed Garrett is above Clay Holmes, who hasn't given up a run this year. I mean, Reed Garrett should absolutely be rostered. He is, it's Class A, Robert Suarez, Helsley, and then Reed Garrett. That's your top 4 relievers right now on the player radar. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he more valuable than Zach Gallen, Brady Singer, Logan Gilbert,
Mason Miller,
Yamamoto. Like, there's all these people that he's been more valuable. So if he's still sitting out there in your league because people don't look at relief pitchers or whatever for whatever reason, absolutely grab him up. He's been fantastic for our game and in the real game.
Yeah, no, completely. He's been the equivalent to Bryce Miller, Carlos Rodon, Jose Barrios, Jordan Hicks. Yeah, he's been the equivalent to like basically a number 3 starter.
Yeah, maybe even a 2. I mean, some of those names are 2s for people. So he's been great. Let's move over to somebody who has not been great in the last couple of games, and that is Yohan Duran. The Guardians apparently have his number. He hadn't given up a run all season. Then he gave up 4 earned runs to the Guardians in 2 games, gave up 2 home runs, 2 walks. He had 1 walk all season before this series. Are you worried about Yohan Duran? Maybe there's something wrong. Do the Guardians just have him? And who are you looking at maybe speculatively picking up if you think something's wrong with Duran?
Maybe there's something wrong. I don't know. It's hard to say because like he was basically injured, and then he didn't really have a normal lead into the season. So he might just be getting up to speed, maybe like literally, like as far as like his stuff goes. I don't know. I would definitely, if Griffin Jax is out there and you're once again, if you're struggling for saves, it wouldn't be a bad speculation move to grab Griffin Jax if he's out there. He was fine when he was the closer. So, maybe Duran needs to, be in the 7th and 8th inning for a couple weeks just to get right. But yeah, he doesn't look right. He absolutely doesn't look anything close to how he's been in the past. So yeah, I think he can get better if he's healthy. It's just a matter of him getting there. His velocity looks pretty. I mean, he's averaging over 100 miles per hour. So it's not the velocity. It looks like, if anything, it might be the command of the stuff a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't drop him by any means, but I would probably speculate on Jax if he's out there.
Yeah, I mean, Griffin Jax has been good in his own right, so you can certainly grab him up and use your roster spot. And there's a lot worse things you can do there. If Duran had been struggling all season or something, I might say something's here. I feel like this is one of those things where maybe the Guardians just see him better, or maybe they found something that he's tipping because they do see him more often. But I wouldn't really be worried about him. But yes, go ahead and grab up Griffin Jax. anyways, because if there is something wrong, he's going to get the closer job back, and he's been really good either way.
Yeah.
Over in Dodgerland, Evan Phillips is supposed to be back either this weekend or maybe just early next week. I don't know. There's a whole lot to do here. The Dodgers kind of keep running out. Their little rotation of them. It still seems like Daniel Hudson and Alex Vesia are probably the two that you want if you're going to chase Dodger saves, but you only got about a week
left. Yeah. I wouldn't, yes, exactly what you said. I wouldn't be like going crazy for Dodger saves. I think Evan Phillips, his injury was minor to begin with. So I think he's fine. I think he's probably coming back any day now, or at least within a week.
Yeah, I think so. All right, Gray, let's go ahead and move to waivers. Who you got for people?
Okay. All right. Looking at the 7-day player rater on Razzball.com. Luis Matos, we mentioned him earlier. I think he's probably the top pickup right now. I would grab him everywhere. Kevin Pillar has been hot. He was, I think he had a homer, a couple steals this week. Ron Washington really likes him because Ron Washington is throwing out the worst lineups in the history of lineups. So Kevin Pillar fits in perfectly there. It's him and Willie Calhoun. I mean, of course they're great. I mean, anyway, Luke Raley for the Mariners. He's been really hot recently. Good pickup, outfielder, first base eligibility. Jake Myers is for the Astros. He's been hitting well, playing 6 games last week. He had 2 homers, a steal. Joey Ortiz, who we mentioned earlier, had a great week. Alec Burleson, Cardinals outfielder. He had a great week. He would have an even better week if he were traded somewhere, but he's on the Cardinals for now. Tyler Freeman, he had a really good week. Hit 429 last week. Had a couple steals. Good eligibility, second, short, third, outfield. Andrew McCutchen had a couple homers, hit 333 last week, is good. Jordan Beck, I was looking at him for this week, actually, in Fab. I think Jordan Beck could be in for a good week. He's going, against the A's, and then he goes home to goes to Coors. So, and he's been playing. Bud Black has been playing Jordan Beck. So, yeah, look at him. And then Nick Gonzalez, someone who we probably should have talked about a bit more, but he looks like he's the new second baseman for the Pirates. And he was a top 10 overall pick in 2020 draft pick for the Pirates, I believe. I think he went 9th overall. Anyway, Nick Gonzalez looks really interesting. I mean, he's got power, and he's hitting for a good average now. And I think that could actually hold. I don't know. I'm really kind of interested in Nick Gonzalez. I think I actually grabbed him in a couple leagues off of Fab. So yeah, I would look at him. And then also Jake Bowers has been hot. So yeah, there's some names.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely look at some of those guys. Nick Gonzalez, longtime member of the B-Don Dynasty team. So hopefully he can get it going. All right, some streaming options for you real quick. A couple of Angels and Jose Soriano and Patrick Sandoval versus the Guardians. Michael Wacha gets a 2-step versus Detroit at Tampa Bay. He's been very up and down, but at least the last couple have been very strong, and it's Michael Wacha. So, it's going to be a little up and down at times. Tyler Anderson at Houston. Robert Gasser at Miami. Spencer Arrighetti at Oakland. Cal Quantrill gets at Oakland and versus Philly. Don't love the versus Philly, but if you get the at Oakland, it's worth it. Eric Fetty at Toronto versus Baltimore. Cole Irvin at the White Sox. Michael Lorenzen at Minnesota. Alec Marsh versus Detroit, and I guess Alek Manoah at Detroit as well.
No!
Look, Gray, I know every week without fail, one streaming option just gets demolished. I'm hoping it's Alek Manoah so we can We can just end it, Gray.
I hope it's Alek Manoah too. Just because everyone just spent so much in fab for him. Yeah, I am rooting against him. I'll be honest. We'll see.
Yeah, he'll get lit up and then drop right back out to free agency. It'll be a fun turnaround there in a couple of weeks. So yeah, best of luck to everybody except for Alek Manoah. If you have questions for us, you can find us on Twitter. I am at RazBeaton. Gray owns the @Razzball account. Find us on youtube.com/Razzball Fantasy in the comments. Like and subscribe there. Like, subscribe, review wherever you listen to us or watch us, whether that is on YouTube or not. Till next week, Gray, good luck, and I'll talk to you later, bud.
All right, Lates.